small body of determined spirits, fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission, can alter the course of history. This quote, said by Mahatma Gandhi, inspired and fueled the Indian citizens to fight for the independence of India. Because of the courageous actions that Gandhi made, he is not a forgotten soul of history, but still remembered as a hero by the Indian people. But what makes Mahatma Gandhi so memorable anyway?
Back in 1858, the British staked their claim on the country of India, which was the center of trade in Asia, in hopes to protect and enhance their trade. Before this time, India governed itself, and now the British imposed their rule. Because of their completely different cultures, the British taxes and other reforms were completely unsuitable for the Indian lifestyle, so the Indian life only became harsher than before.
For example, India began suffering economically because the wealth of the higher caste Indians was being used for Britain's financial problems. On top of it, the Indians' carefully crafted handmade goods were being replaced with factory-made products. Worst of all, Indians were being drafted to the British Army and giving their lives by fighting in World War I, which was completely irrelevant to the Indian nation.
However, all was not lost. In 1918, Gandhi came along. He became the president of the Indian National Congress in hopes to free India from the strangling British grasp by using nonviolence tactics.
One of the first reforms that were targeted by Gandhi was the Revolt Acts. These acts granted the British government the ability to imprison suspected Indian terrorists without a trial and to drive people out of their homes at any given time. It also prohibited the Indians from publishing their local newspapers. In order to end these acts, Gandhi, along with the leaders of the Indian National Congress, encouraged the Indian citizens to go on strike and fast. The idea was to show the British that they could function just as well, if not better, without their rule.
However, under much tension, some Indians began to riot, and it was clear that the Indian people were not ready for nonviolence protesting. The rioting movement was particularly strong in Punjab, and two of their important leaders were arrested by British officials and hidden away. This led to a peaceful protest which took place at a park known as Jallianwala Bagh on April 13th. The British were ready for a bloody revenge, and their troops stealthily surrounded the park entrance awaiting the signal to fire, and fire they did. They killed about 1,000 people and seriously injured 2,000. This uncalled massacre caused the Indian citizens to lose complete trust in the British people.
One of the goods which the British taxed extremely high was salt. On top of it, the British made it illegal to obtain salt from anywhere else except themselves. Salt is a very important necessity, as well as important to the Indian culture, so this outrageously high tax angered the whole nation. This incident sparked the Dandi March. Gandhi and 78 of his followers marched 240 miles from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi for 23 days by foot. People from the villages that they passed through cheered them on and showed their unyielding support, which grabbed the attention of the rest of the world. On the morning of April 6th, the day after their arrival to Dundee, Gandhi took seawater and boiled it, creating salt. He patriotically declared, "With this I am shaking the foundations of the British Empire." Sadly, the British arrested Gandhi for illegally producing salt. However, his bold action won the support of the majority of India and encouraged them to continue the fight for freedom.
On September 16, 1932, Gandhi began to protest the British government's decision to separate India's electoral system by case by fasting. The new Indian constitution that the British made gave the country's lowest classes, known as the Untouchables, their own separate political representation for about 70 years. Gandhi thought this was unfair and would divide the Indian social classes forever, so he wanted to emancipate them. After 6 days, the British agreed to reverse the separation decision they made about dividing the higher castes with the Untouchables. Gandhi's action influenced even more people, and they began to rely on and trust him.
The Quit India movement was launched in August of 1942. This was the day after that Gandhi was arrested. However, the Indian people took action. They held several strikes in different places for a couple of days. But the British government suppressed most of them, and at least 100,000 people were imprisoned in detention centers. Others were killed or injured. These strikes did not succeed all the way, but it united the people against the British rule. The Indian people never gave up fighting for freedom, and on August 15, 1947, they finally won their independence.
In order to be remembered, you must be different when everyone else is the same. Gandhi was a great example of this. All the Indian people for the longest time were controlled by the British, whereas Gandhi was not afraid to stand up for what he believed in and make a difference in his world. Though he was assassinated by Nathuram Godse on January 30th, 1948, his legacy in India and unique character simply make him unforgettable.
Even in our lives today, we can remember that you must be the change you wish to see in the world.